Ladies and gentlemen, please silence your phones and hush your babies. The show is about to start.
Good evening, everyone. As you can see by the state of my suit, I've just run out through the rain in what can only be described as pathetic fallacy, which is not what certain Mormon apologists do, but is when the weather reflects the mood and the somber tone of tonight's proceedings. I am apologizing to everyone who thought this was going to be the episode on how I broke the LDS chatbot. That, was going to be fun. We're going to have a good time. But I got a letter instead. It's a letter I didn't think I would ever receive, and it's a letter that, frankly, none of you probably ever thought I was going to receive either, because I'm just so charming and lovely. But it's happened, ladies and gentlemen. I think we all know what this is, and the viewing numbers just doubled at the mention of that. It has happened. I have been summoned to a church disciplinary council to determine whether I'm guilty of apostasy or not. And so I'm joined by my favorite apostates, all of them, apart from one who's not an apostate. Here they are. Hello. The Brit Vengers.
Hey.
Hi.
How are we all feeling? Okay, right. I probably should have sorted out some audio levels. Sarah, I'm going to turn you down for a start. Your audio is very loud. It's all right. This is a professional operation.
Me.
I have just got in from a meeting with my stake president to discuss this momentous occasion. So tell your friends, tell your family, all in the chat. Everyone jump on in. We have Jammy Dodgers. We're all going to feel good about life. Yeah. Initial reactions, folks, to the letter before we read it and talk about it.
Why now? That's my initial question.
Yeah. So my assumption was it's because you've had quite a high profile locally. You went on Lad Bible and did an amazing job there, which had got attention from Ward Radio and others. They realise what an audience that has and how impactful that is. And in which you were describing sort of your experience, just answering questions about the LDS Church, honestly, basically. And then I thought it was that this week you were on all the local BBC radio stations answering some questions about how you are a kind of a rebellious dissident within Mormonism, trying to hold the leaders to account. And that tends to be something that the Late Show, which goes out on all the local channels, would be something that ordinary church members would be much more aware of, rather than all the fun we are having on the sort of doing battle with the apologists in the Bloggernacle, which most of them never see. So I was wondering if there was some kind of outcry from the grassroots demanding to know why you haven't been dealt with yet. So that was my theory.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sarah?
My theory is that I think the BBC has a significant amount to do with it, because it's bringing your channel to the attention of people that would not normally know your channel even existed. I also think there's something significant in the timing of General Conference coming up. And there were rumours afoot that you had intended to be at General Conference. And I think they would be highly motivated to not want you in the conference centre, voting opposed and drawing attention to that. So I think that's another factor. And I also think we really need to look at the fact that Dallin H. Oakes is, on the surface, it appears to become closer to a Dallin H. Oakes presidency. And I think he does not want dissidents around. And the
I think you've asked your head on a platter.
Well, people are saying that it might be a birthday present for Nelson.
I think it's more a present for Oakes than for Nelson. I don't think Nelson's probably compos mentis anymore, but I think Oakes has probably got a little wish list what he'd like for Nelson's birthday.
And what they'd all like is Nemo silenced, because the church just feels that it cannot thrive and grow with criticism, when actually most people know that anyone thrives and grows with constructive new ways of thinking about things.
If they wanted to silence me, all they had to do was this. How horrible.
Well, while
Hard
He's
to-
comfort
but you'd
eating jammy
enjoy that.
dodgers.
Yeah, but you'd
Yeah.
enjoy being silence with jammy dodgers, and it's much more fun to make you be quiet.
So while you're quietly chewing away, thoughts on the letter. I don't want anyone to get the impression, whether they're a member of the church or an ex-Mormon, or you're just kind of watching this space. I don't care who you are. If there's any impression that people are watching this and think that we're all sitting having a laugh because, we've got the excommunication letter and we've been, this is not fun. This was not fun. Nemo looked as if he'd been tased. And there was a lot of processing to be done, and you're very, very good, Nemo, at dealing with things and in good spirits, and you've done that. You've handled it with grace. But I am so sorry, because I know that this has an impact on more people than just you. The people who are watching tonight, this is having an impact on them.
Well, I told my state president tonight in no uncertain terms I was not happy about this. Would you be shocked? Before we get into, so we'll be talking about tonight. I might be a little bit scatterbrained tonight. I'm going to do my best to still be a good host, but it's why I brought friends along, because everything's better with friends. So we're going to talk through the letter first of all, and then we will talk through the meeting I've just had with my state president, which he didn't need to have with me. He could have just sent me the letter and we could have responded back and forth, but he very kindly offered to meet with me. He said at the beginning of the meeting, out of respect for our communication over the past number of years, and he wanted to talk to me face to face, and I'm very grateful to him for that. And what this isn't going to be tonight, as much as I may disagree with my state president's decision to do this and his reasoning and his timing, this isn't a bagging session on my state president. For example, I'm not going to tell you all when this is happening. I'm not going to tell you the date specifically. But they initially gave me a date, which we'll read in the letter, that doesn't really make much sense. And I talked to him about that, and he's willing to change the date of the council. So, he's not being unreasonable in this process. I don't want that to be anyone's takeaway of this. I told him in that meeting that we would be doing a live stream basically straight after the meeting. He knows this is who I am. He knows this is what I do. So I really did want to start just by saying, guys, this isn't a bag on my state president for being a terrible person for doing this. As we all go on to discuss, I don't think this is him wanting to do this. I think there are pressures at play. And he's squeezed in between me and some big egos, perhaps. So can we get to the letter? Oh, look at that lovely alternative thumbnail available to viewers soon. Isn't that nice? Okay, the letter in tiny little font that no one can read, and I'm very, very sorry about that. But it's a good job I've got a copy here, isn't it? So, are we ready, children? Are we sat ready for a dramatic reading? Okay.
Then we'll begin.
Dear Brother Stilgo, the Stake Presidency is holding a membership council in your behalf. The council will be held at 10 a.m. on the 23rd of September, 2022. Now, that time and date will change, which is why I'm going to share it with you now. That will have to change for various reasons, one of which my wife would like to come and support me, and she isn't like me. She has like a real job, apparently, and would like have to take time off work, because that's 10 a.m. on a Monday morning, for those who haven't worked it out. 10 a.m. I wonder why they want to do it at 10 a.m. on a Monday morning. Well, I found out the reasons why. And depending on how good I'm feeling, my state president did say he would rather I not share the reasons why, but I told him I'd take it under advisement, so you might get to learn them. This council will consider your public statements as well as reported conduct that together suggest you have A, repeatedly acted in clear and deliberate public opposition to the church, its doctrine, and its leaders, and B, engaged in a pattern of intentionally working to weaken the faith and activity of church members, either of which, if established, could constitute apostasy. During the council, I anticipate that it will take about 15 minutes to present information regarding your statements and reported conduct. You are invited to attend the council to give your response, for which you will be afforded about 45 minutes. Yeah, I'm going to use all of those. You may provide written statements from persons who could provide relevant information. You may invite such persons to speak to the council in your behalf if approved in advance by the stake president. You may also invite your bishop, elders quorum president, or spouse to be present and provide support. The teachings of the Saviour emphasize principles of love, understanding, and compassion. Yes, because all of those feelings are coming out in this letter now. And it is in that spirit we approach this council. We are also committed to ensure the council is conducted in confidentiality and respect. And we will listen with open minds and hearts as you share your perspective. To that end, anyone who attends must be willing to observe the confidential and respectful nature of the council, including its procedures. Legal counsel and supporters beyond those referred to above may not be present. I'll say that line again. Legal counsel and supporters beyond those referred to above may not be present. In addition, to preserve the confidential and respectful nature in the council, A, no participant in the membership council is permitted to make an audio, video, or written recording, and B, we ask you and any other direct participant to sign the confidentiality agreement set out in the attached appendix. There is a confidentiality agreement, and we'll go through that. You can see it's the second page. And this is then the personal note from my stake president. I hope that in the time since you moved to Oxford and in the many times we have met over those years, you have felt my love and concern for you on your spiritual journey. You have often been in my thoughts and prayers. My hope and prayer is that as we meet together, we can find a path forward that aligns with the principles of the gospel and supports you on your spiritual journey. If you have any questions or need further information about this meeting, please don't hesitate to contact me directly. We look forward to meeting with you and working together in a spirit of love, understanding, and compassion. Sincerely, your stake president. Now, again, that final bit, I don't want people raging in the comments going, oh, he doesn't really mean it. I felt the sincerity. I think certainly from his perspective, he feels love and concern towards me and those sorts of things. So I want to be fair. And part of me thought, do I even share what he wrote in that last part? But yes, because all of this has played out publicly and should continue to do so, because this process should be public. People should see what's happening. So someone put in the comments, discipline, spankings, all. Yeah, not quite, but don't threaten me with a good time. And then Jeff Wright puts in, you've committed the cardinal sin of the LDS Mormon Church culture, disloyalty, thinking critically, honestly, and heaven forbid speaking out. Give a smashing defense and expect their horrible best. Excommunication. I do kind of go in expecting that. What are your thoughts, everyone, to the letter? Let's bring that off screen for a second.
I think there was
my initial.
Can I grab Ruth first, then Peter?
Oh, bless you.
Yeah.
So
sorry about my delay. Yeah,
I don't like the way that there is a sleight of hand there with you need to respect us, but we will have no respect for you. You need, you need to respect how this is sacred to us, while they, in their own minds, regardless of how I feel about it, but in their own minds, strip away your eternal progression for speaking truth, for quoting the prophets to themselves, because it makes them feel a little bit uncomfortable. Now, if you really truly believe that in the eternities, and you really think that this is a sacred process, you are sacredly destroying someone's eternities, and I find that abhorrent. I absolutely do. I think that's the most evil thing. And I don't think they've been specific enough in what they're accusing you of to warrant going down this route.
Mm-hmm. And even as I dug into it with my stake president this evening, the more precise reasons, he still won't give me the exact reasons. I don't think he can. I don't think he's allowed by the process. Because in the handbook, it says in this letter, he's not allowed to give details of the evidence against me. He just has to lay out the broad charges. And so I had a bit of an argument with him, because then when I was speaking about, those who want to speak in the council, can they submit? He said, well, we prefer they submit it in writing. If you get that to us in advance, so we can look over it. I said, well, hang on. Why am I expected to be on the back foot and hear all the evidence against me for the first time in this council? But you get to read people's statements about me beforehand, so you can consider them and weigh them up and have time. No. I will bring them to the meeting and you will have to deal with them.
How do you know who to bring to your defense?
Well, yeah.
Absolutely.
Because I think he's given me the broad area of my public comments. And then when I asked for specifics, he says, well, they're your comments. You should be familiar with them. I said, well, yes, but I've made a fair few. I do like the sound of my own voice. I've made a fair few comments of my own in my time. So it would be nice to be pointed to specific ones. And he did kind of point me slightly more specifically, which we can possibly get into later. Peter, sorry, your thoughts. And then Sarah.
No, well, that, you know, it's like, but again, what? Because he has actually reassured you several times, all through your conversations with each other, that you are not a sinner, that you are worthy in a sense. I mean, he has made the choice in a sense that in the handbook categories, what he's been doing is sort of off-piste counselling, you know, personal counselling with you. And imposed membership restrictions by forbidding you to use your priesthood at all. Without any due process, or really telling you why. I mean, did he ever actually answer that? Why you couldn't use your priesthood? What were the reasons he gave?
Because I was unable to obtain a temple recommend, and the standard of worthiness for using the priesthood is linked to the standard of worthiness with holding a temple recommend. So it's trying to get one, not being able to get one.
Yeah.
So he was saying, because you're unworthy of a temple recommend, you're unworthy of the priesthood.
Yeah, therefore you can't use priesthood, which is innovative. That is not church doctrine. And you know, so what this all tracks to is the reason you don't have a temple recommend is you vote opposed. You won't sustain leaders who are proven liars and who, when invited by your stake president himself in that process to defend themselves against 10 specific accusations of 6 of them lying, some of them twice, the only response given was Dallin Oaks saying that Fair Mormon thinks I didn't know I was lying when I lied about electroshock therapy. That's as far as he went about anything specific. Apparently he said some other things in a letter to your stake president, which he threw in the bin and never shared with you. And also you won't pay tithing to an organisation that's lying to all the members about what they do with the money. And because of that, you can't have a temple recommend retrofitted to not being able to use your priesthood. None of that is to do with you breaking people's testimony and faith. The reason you are under the restrictions you are under was entirely related to you not sustaining liars and not being willing to give money to people who misspend it. That you have integrity and you made that ethical stand. And when invited to, you voted opposed. None of that at all was connected with your criticisms of the church and other matters or accusations that you are destroying people's testimony.
This is what I said to him. I said, you can't claim that the personal counseling you gave me around temple recommends and how I could qualify for a temple recommend was in some way you trying to tell me that I should stop doing what I'm doing online and stop communicating in the way I'm communicating, lest I get excommunicated. You can't say that that was a coverall. Particularly, as I pointed out to him, I'm a particularly binary person. I tend to have quite solid lines of right and wrong, left and right. This sort of right. So you don't work with someone like me in that way.
I wonder where you learned how to be like that.
Oh, and I told him the church taught me that as well. Go on, Sarah.
I think there's a few points I want to make. First of all, it concerns me greatly that the church hold excommunication disciplinary councils in secret. If they are truly if they truly believe that they are doing the work of God and that they have the Spirit with them and that they are acting under the direction and inspiration of God in holding a disciplinary council, then provided the person who is at that council, which is you, Nemo, gives consent, there should be no concern in having it public and having it open to everybody to listen to. Satan sulks around doing his works in the dark. I would like to see our priesthood leaders doing works in broad daylight and saying, Doug has given consent, therefore we will hold this hearing in public so that everybody knows what's going on. The other concern I have is how much thought have they given to what you may need in the way of mental health and emotional health support for something that is as serious as a membership council. And the final comment I want to make, it probably won't be my final comment by a long shot, but actually my final comment at this precise moment is one of the things that they are levying against you is that you are weakening the testimony and the faith of members. Can you read that bit again for me, please?
Yeah, I can, absolutely.
Because I need to have that exact.
I hope they've got a witness that they're bringing. to say my testimony has been weakened by.
Well, this is where I'm coming to that. Well, I'm coming to with that one. Can you read that bit, Doug?
It is engaged in a pattern of intentionally working to weaken the faith and activity of church members.
Okay, I would really like right now to put a call out to everybody who's in this chat family to drop in the name in the chat of the person who has most affected their testimony and weakened their faith and their testimony in this church.
So you don't want to do that. That will be me.
I don't believe that many people will put the name Nemo the Mormon weakened my faith and my testimony. I think people will put things there like the November 15 policy, the recent transgender policy, some of the things that have been said about the LGBT community by Dallin H. Oakes, some of the things around the musket fire talk. People are going to put those as
here's some
the
names.
SEC fine. The SEC fine.
Yeah.
That is what people are going to say is weakened their testimony and their faith.
And if that warrants an excommunication, Dallin H. Oakes,
we're in trouble as a church, aren't we?
Yeah.
And I'm coming from this as a church member. I'm actively engaged in the church. There's things I love about this church. But for goodness sake, can we stop thinking that anybody who wants to say, let's examine this in public around something that a church leader has said or done is an apostate or is a critic or is anti the church? If you're coming to the table and saying, this talk has just been given by an apostle, let's examine it in public and see what we think of it. The church should not be so caught up in a persecution complex that they have to silence you. So, chat family, get those names in there. I want to know who's affected your
testimony.
testimony.
Amazing, Sarah. I'm watching it, and it is absolutely crystal clear.
Better? Well,
and
they all need to turn up at your council and give evidence.
You.
Well, every single one of these people needs to be putting this in writing and getting it to your state president then.
Yeah.
But I was told by my state president that I lack what was the word I used earlier, Peter? What was it he said? Objectivity.
Intelligence. Sex appeal.
Oh yes, subjectivity.
Yes.
Oh my gosh.
I lack objectivity because my content is too focused on the negative. And I explained that, well, I'm part of a broader conversation for a start. So there are other people absolutely applauding the positives of Russell M. Nelson. We all know he was a heart surgeon. We all know he plays the piano. We all know he speaks Mandarin. We all know he's the longest livingest prophet there ever was. Right?
And
we all know this about him.
And lots of people are grateful there's an hour less of church.
Yes. Right?
Very grateful.
We know the good stuff he's done.
And he may be in the Guinness Book of Records soon. So that's going to be something that
his birthday card already was. But anyway, so I was explaining that, I'm part of a broader conversation here. It's not a lack of objectivity to be focused on a specific area. My state president's a lawyer. I said, just because you're focused on one specific area of law, does that mean you lack objectivity in the law? Does that mean that you lack objectivity as a lawyer because you focus on one area? Is that what that means?
Would a heart surgeon be less of a doctor because it focuses only on being a heart surgeon?
Well, yeah. And actually, I'd argue it's highly objective to face your religious community and all the biases that come with that and all the reasons you could possibly have to excuse the behavior of these men and say, oh, it's only a little lie. Oh, he misremembered something. Oh, it's only this, it's only that. It takes more objectivity to actually focus on the facts of what happened and whether they lied or not and trying to get to the truth of that, rather than, as has been suggested to me by my state president, reframing and putting it in the broader context and think of all the good he's done. That's not objectivity. That is looking for reasons to ignore the problems. So I will not take lectures on objectivity from someone who says I should ignore dishonesty from men who claim to speak for God because I should consider the broader good that they do. Am I wrong in that? People in the chat, let me know. David Welsh is saying that Paul Toscano said excommunication is the ultimate Mormon sacrament, and I've achieved it. RFM would say you've graduated, wear it with pride. Well, I'm not sure I feel like that right now, Peter.
I
well, absolutely,
it's excommunication.
Well, it depends. I mean, humor is the way to take down dictatorships.
Yeah, it is.
You know,
It
as I
is.
mentioned before, I've got a great book called Heckling Hitler, and it's all the cartoons that were done kind of showing Hitler and the leading Nazis and fascists for what they were. And that was really important for kind of putting them in their place, not turning them into these boogeymen we can never defeat, or that should have that whole kind of sway of fear over us. So I do think, you know, there's definitely a place for satire and having a sense of humor. But obviously, as you and Jane have reminded us, you know, this is of course very serious. And
Yeah.
when Nemo got the news initially, you know, did seem crestfallen, and we had a little chat, and I talked about my experience, even though I was kind of expecting it. When it actually happens, when you actually get the letter, and John DeLynn and others have talked about this, it still feels like a disappointment. You know, your community that you've given everything to has let you down. Even though you knew it in theory and it was inevitable.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I naively thought it'd be
It
different.
still hurts.
And maybe that's my
Yeah.
hubris.
Oh,
Like Icarus, I have flown too close to
Yeah.
the sun. You know, I thought maybe I could get away with it,
Yeah.
but apparently not. Go on,
No.
Jane.
Yeah.
It's very
So,
normal.
thoughts on the letter. I think it would be horrific if generally excommunications were made public. I think it's something that the church is really almost proud of. Who do we need to punch in the head to turn their phone on to silent? Peter Blakely. Terrible
It's not me,
internet
excuse
interview
me.
behaviour.
What?
Oh,
I don't think it's me.
anyway,
It's Sarah. Look at her.
Well,
She's
I don't
flapping
know
about.
if it is. My
the
phone's
way.
over
Right.
there. Let me find out.
It's
Oh.
This stream has
Oh,
lost
gosh.
focus. Jane,
Right,
please.
we are interrupting
Oh,
like crazy.
It was
Phones are
me.
going
I'm
off.
so sorry.
Right.
I
Thank you.
apologise
Thank you.
profusely.
Yes, it would be awful if excommunications were public, because for the most part, the church leaders actually are doing a really good job of trying to keep things private. Most people don't want these things to be made public. Now, that's not to say that we don't want transparency in these proceedings, which is, I think, more what we're looking for. In the case of Nemo the Mormon, I mean, it could potentially, if it was a public event, you could have all sorts of issues that could be raised as a result of that. So one thing I am confident of is the desire to keep this a safe space in that way. Now, where it becomes extremely worrying is are the rules. That when you show up for this, and when we're going to have this conversation, because I don't think there's any point in getting into the what's it really about, because they haven't actually told you. Is it about what you're saying online? The Lad Bible stuff, which was fantastic. The recent BBC local interview that you did was fantastic. These were very non-biased and very interesting. You did have the audacity to ask for tickets to conference. That may have been problematic, and I think that was extremely relevant. But we don't really know. You're weakening the faith of people. Just as many people will say that you have helped them stay in church for all sorts of reasons, and that's what I'm more interested in. That's the part that your state president hasn't been able to really hear about. But the rules around this, you can't take even a pen with you to record it. So these statements that may be used, this testimony that may be used, were we to invite church leadership at any level, but let's say the first presidency, would you come to an interview where we will present things that you have said to decide if you're telling the truth, but we're not going to tell you what things that you've said? They would immediately be saying, well, you take these things out of context, we're not sure, give us some time to prepare. We would need to have additional support with us for a host of different reasons. And you only have 45 minutes in which to defend your record, as well as have people share their experiences of why you should be defended against these very, very fuzzy accusations. That's devastating. And it's unacceptable. No one would walk into that room if they didn't really want to stay in this church, if they didn't really want to defend themselves, you're going to have to give up a lot to walk into that room.
Yeah, but I'll do it. Kelby Thwaite says, love and jammy dodgers to you. I'm going to be self-indulgent and read all the nice comments tonight. I usually try and challenge myself a bit.
Absolutely.
And can I just say, I am looking sideways, reading the comments, and I love you in the chat. I love you. Then there are names there that I see time and time and time again.
Yeah.
And even though I probably don't respond, and I'm, just liking comments and things over the years that we've had this sort of ongoing conversation, I love you all. I genuinely do. And the support that is there, the genuine support, the genuine concern, the genuine love, not the testimony meeting, I love all my family, I love all of you here sat in the pews, but genuine love and concern and support on this side of the journey is incredible and cannot be underrated. And although this is a line in the sand, if you're playing the Mormon game, it's not. When you rip up the rule book and you say that doesn't define me, their relationship to me does not define me, my relationship to them is of my making and my choice, then all of these relationships, they can't take away from you. And screw them, just absolute knobheads. But anyway, it's late, sorry.
That's all right. I'm gonna throw Peter on there. I muted Sarah because I'm definitely sure it's your phone. Peter, jump in, and then Sarah, you can jump in.
It's turned off. Not my phone.
She's repented. See how you can model that. Talk about a difficult thing. Have a confrontation. Someone repents, and it's over with. We're all healed.
Which we'll get into why that's
just
pertinent here, Peter. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. So first of all, we're not to dox him, but this stake president is a lawyer, so he understands reasonable procedure as far as a fair trial would go. So he's already, in a sense, searing his own soul and professionalism in playing this system, and he's part of a system, and it's the system we're concerned about. What was really interesting is, for me, particularly being geeky about details, is in that letter they missed out calling out policies. So in time for my excommunication a few years ago, presumably Dallin Oakes added to, but Nelson, whoever, added to the definition of apostasy, publicly and repeatedly criticizing leaders, doctrines, and the church, its doctrines and its leaders, and they added policies before leaders. So I don't know if he's using an old version of the form that has forgotten to update with policies, but I would argue that predominantly what you have been calling out is the policies of the church.
Well,
you've certainly shone a light on its contradictory versions of its own history and a reasonable skeptical perspective on some of the truth claims, which you could say is, having a look at doctrines. But the main issue for you has been the practice of lying, the policy to hoard money secretly and break the law to do so from the tithing, the policy of filling the church teaching curriculum with weasel words and inaccuracies and all the rest of it. So for whatever reason, policy got dropped off that accusation. Maybe it's an acknowledgement from him that they can't. Well, you have criticized the policies, but he can't defend you as doing that badly because you've made such good analysis of that. And the other thing is that he has not followed procedure, even just on basic ethics, but also the rules. He's gone from assuring you that your membership is not in peril, although he's imposed a limit on you practicing priesthood because you don't have a temple recommend, which is completely shaky foundationally. There are loads of people blessing the sacrament and so on every day, every Sunday, who do not have a temple recommend. So that's nonsense. He's made up that, and he knows it. He should be ashamed.
Well, there is a reading of the handbook. You could take it that way, just no one ever does. Yes, carry on.
Well, yeah, but also to be specific, so I need to just get it up. In 32.8.1 of the handbook, which is about how a person like him, a stake president or bishop, should be handling the form of intervention with discipline that is the personal counselling, which is what he's been doing all this time. It says, encourage the member to take specific actions to bring about the change of behaviour and change of heart to repent. My stake president, who I'd been having long conversations with about my inflammatory posts online and my criticisms of the brethren and so on, there came a point where he gave me a specific warning. He gave me that courtesy. We met and he said, we've reached a point and I've been discussing with the area authorities, as he's meant to in case of apostasy, the area authority, the stake president is meant to consult with about disciplining an apostate. And he said, if you do not do these certain things, there is a strong likelihood we will be putting you on trial. And for me, that list included, I take down all my critical statements from Facebook and basically shut up in public now, you know. But he made that, he gave me that warning. He did me the courtesy, he followed procedure. He's telling me what I need to do to repent in the view of the church in order to not then escalate to the step of church discipline. Your stake president has not done that. He has not given you specific actions to bring about the change of behavior or change of heart to repent. And all he's talked about, as you said, change of heart wise, is ignore the leaders being lying, stealing hypocrites.
Let me walk people through this for a second, because I discussed this with him.
Yeah.
I said, you know, there's been no specific counsel for me to, you better get a bit closer, you might not want to do this. And the area which I'm being told to look at is the time when I emailed the whole High Council as well as the state presidency and some other leaders, because I believe they needed to be in possession of the information. And that's my issue. But that happened, I think the bulk of that happened about a year ago. I need to check the exact dates, but certainly a while back was I doing such a thing. So it's almost like getting Al Capone on taxes. But at no point did he say, the vultures are circling, you know, you need to calm it down a bit. When I got back from Texas, there was no drama about that. There was no drama about the Lad Bible. I was explicitly told tonight it's not about the BBC interview. And I was explicitly told tonight that Down 8 Jokes hasn't put any pressure down. So I'm going to choose to believe my state president. That's what he's telling me. We'll find out the truth maybe one day if he's not telling me the truth, but I can't see why he'd lie to me at this point. But I did ask him, to Ruth's initial question, why now? What is it about now? Because I can't work out why emails I sent to the High Council a year ago, where I believe one of the things I said was I called the dishonesty of the brethren a cancer that is killing the church. And am I wrong?
Which is true.
Because the people that are leaving the church is hemorrhaging members because the brethren cannot get themselves straight on things, because their behavior is causing people to lose trust in them. People aren't losing their faith. Time and time again, they're losing their trust in the institution. So it's been, no, we're not that worried about what you're doing online, or this isn't about what you're doing online. This is about you trying to get a temple recommend, or this is about your priesthood, or whatever. And then all of a sudden it's like, over the past year, the behavior's got worse and we think it's time. All right. Well, he did.
So that's the mic drop from the meeting. When asked to say specifically what is this excommunication trial going to be about, it is that he sent some emails to the Stake High Council a year ago.
He could have
somehow they cross a line.
He could have just said to me, and this is to your point,
that's it.
He could have just said to me,
obviously.
Hang on. He could have just said to me, you didn't need to include the High Council. I'd appreciate you've just kept this between us, right? I'll go, yeah, okay, cool. Because I gave reasons in the emails why I included the High Council. And this is obviously going to form, I'm giving away my defense now for my trial, but that will form part of my defense is, well, I explained why I thought they need to be included. If you disagree, and that's fine, you can. The solution isn't to try and excommunicate me. The solution is to say they don't really need to know about this. Can you just keep it between us? And I go, yeah, sure, fine. If you don't think they're relevant parties. But instead, somebody has got upset. Somebody's testimony has been damaged that was on the High Council because they got an email from little old me. And now, apparently, that's my fault and I've got to cop up for it. Seems weird. It's like getting Al Capone on tax.
I'm sorry.
This is the best he can come up with. That's it.
Did they say somebody's testimony being affected on the High Council? Did he actually say that?
It was about, this is about you're not giving people a choice to not engage with your content when you email people. And I was like, well, hang on, they've got a cop to being a member of the stake leadership. They're gonna be confronted with this stuff. if people's testimonies are still this fragile, that is the church's fault for keeping all this stuff from people for so long. It's not my fault for making it known. I would say.
So
but
you're facing discipline for something you did a year ago.
I don't want to just say a year ago, because I may have included them in an email more recently, and I don't want to be like, oh, you actually did. But certainly I haven't in months. And while I was trying to break that stalemate of my stake president kind of ignoring me for months at a time and not getting back to me, and we've discussed all that, and you know, the High Council will also get involved and things like that. So yes, Jane, sorry.
So with the best will in the world, and I don't know if you all have noticed in the chat, because you lot who have been our chat family since we all began, you all know how we speak about our stake presidents, and it is glowing. Like, the reason we get to be so supportive. How are you staying in the church? We have really good stake presidents. And so I've got no doubt that in some level what he believes he's saying is true. But stake president, that is bollocks. That cannot possibly be true. And if you hear it coming out of your mouth, it can't possibly be true, because what will happen is, if this is about a series of emails that included the whole state council, which includes would include women, right? I'm sure you're talking about stake leadership.
Yeah, I did.
Include women's voices, right? So if the first time you're able to actually draw them into this conversation, which is something they don't often get invited to do, you did that. Because you've sent some emails and it's got worse. Now, these aren't weekly emails. These aren't even monthly emails. We're talking about, maybe this has happened less than one hand, right? And it's got worse. That's what they're going to break down during this disciplinary trial. So we're going to
it would seem so.
Email. I suspect not.
Apparently, I don't need to worry about Texas. I don't need to worry about BBC. I don't need to worry about Lad Bible. It's about what's going on in the stake. And you know, I have just come from that meeting, and I wasn't expecting to have to defend that part of what I did, because I figured any mature, reasonable group of people would go, oh, we didn't want to be included those emails. I even said to my stake president tonight, there were individuals who were no longer on the High Council that when they got a follow-up email, they said, please remove me from the list because I'm not on the High Council. And that was fine. I never included them again. There were stake presidents when I sent emails to stake presidents who said, please don't email me again. So I never did, right? It's up to adult members of the church to set their own boundaries if they get an email they don't like from a member who has legitimately included them. It's not up to me to just somehow assume that people aren't going to want to hear stuff that I think they meant to know.
And these are all people whose contact details are in state calendars and state. All this is available for you to email.
And there are High Councilmen whose email addresses are not available on the tools, so I didn't send it to those individuals.
So just you hold your horses. You're not in your disciplinary council now, Nemo the Mormon. Let me just add to this. Because I'm on a high horse now. If the suggestion then is all they'll be presenting is this situation, and you're expected to prepare a defence based on that, could I just suggest, as one of your mates, maybe prepare a bit more broadly, right?
Yes, Ruth, please.
Well, I didn't realise that that's what they were. That was the meat of their argument. And if you did send it to the State Council rather than just to High Councillors, now that then gives you an opportunity to have your stake president, Stake Relief Society president, the stake youth representatives who maybe were on that State Council as your witnesses. Have you weakened their testimonies? Because they're on a bit of a sticky wicket with that one, because actually, are they going to stand in that meeting and say, my testimony has been weakened? Guess what? You're going to be having the next council then. Or are they going to stand there and say, no, I've got a perfectly fine testimony, thank you very much. In which case,
no problem.
they make your case, exactly, there's no problem. So if this case is built on you sending those emails, you call all of those people that you ever put on that email contact list to and ask them one by one, please, can you bear your testimony to me? And if somebody says, I no longer have a testimony, say, I'm really sorry about that. If that was on me, so be it. But I guarantee you, all of them will say, I've got a perfectly fine testimony, nothing to do with you. You know, you couldn't rock it for all the world. So perfect, wonderful, moving on.
Yeah,
that is such a brilliant point. You can literally name and list all the people he is claiming you have terribly harmed enough to excommunicate you.
Yeah, and have them included as your witnesses. You're allowed to call those witnesses.
I'm so looking forward to this. It's
Be
going to be a
room.
My gosh, these people are hopeless. Reality check, everyone. Obviously, it's not about that. Your state president is lying to you through his teeth. He is talking absolute bollocks, and the only thing he can actually keep him on side, Peter, is in any way I'm not on trial. In any way crossing the line is he's had to go back to a year that you emailed his high council, who are the stake leadership, about your situation, saying, look, you in your stake, you know, and they discuss everyone in the state council. That's the point. They discuss all the difficult cases among the members. There's no privacy. Yep. And you were simply saying to them, if I remember the context of those communications in general, I am being told, given mixed messages here. I'm being told I cannot, by your state president, I cannot use my priesthood at all, even though later on your bishop asked you to bless the sacrament, and you did, and then there was
I did.
Kerfuffle.
I'll cop that. Yeah.
And also, the stake president sent you this letter inviting you to an excommunication trial without telling your bishop. Without telling your bishop.
I asked him
your
about
bishop
that,
about
and he
this
said,
on Sunday. He didn't know it was happening.
So he said he wanted to respect the confidentiality of it and not tell my bishop and let me tell him. That was his thing.
What? Why is that your job?
They left your bishop
He wanted you to...
What? No, that's a mic drop. Mic drop. They left your bishop out of the discussion.
Yeah, my bishop didn't know.
Confidential.
Oh, hang on,
they'll be telling him.
Hang on, you're all being very unreasonable now. Of course, they've left Nemo's bishop out of this, because if they were to tell him about this, it would affect his faith and testimony. Now, come on, be fine.
So weak and fragile.
I like my bishop. I don't want to say mean things about my bishop online. I like him. He's a nice guy. Yeah. My former bishop was... Also, my former bishop was the one who very strongly and robustly defended me on some of these charges and points. And the current bishop is not as engaged in sort of defending me in this, that, and he doesn't approach this in the same way. So I think they possibly wanted to keep him out of it. But I said goodbye to my elders quorum today.
He's your bishop. He's your bishop.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, your bishop is ultimately responsible for your welfare and your well-being. You don't leave a bishop out of an excommunication discussion.
Well, I told him, I was like, you know what? You're going to be at this meeting, so you don't know about it? He's like, no. I was like, well, they should have planned it with consideration for you being available to be there. So I'm going to put together a list.
Yeah.
I'll send it out tomorrow, but I'm going to put together a list of who I want there and the times and dates it needs to be. Because would you all like to know, ladies and gentlemen, why they wanted to do it at 10 a.m.?
Yes.
Wouldn't you all like to know? Sorry, I've got a bit of a sniffle. I've been out in the rain. My apologies. That was horrific to sniff.
And then tell us about your Elders Quorum experience.
Well, okay, I'll tell you about Elders Quorum first. So Elders Quorum, I just said goodbye. We were sharing spiritual experiences at the beginning, and I just said, there's a load of new people that just moved into the ward, and I said, look, I hope you will take this opportunity to really enjoy Elders Quorum. This is an Elders Quorum, not like any other, where you can actually be honest about what you think. I can sit here and say I didn't like Russell M. Nelson's talk, and that's fine. We can say that. I called out my Elders Quorum president today in Elders Quorum for quoting Russell M. Nelson where he didn't need to. He could have quoted literally anyone else. I was like, come on, did you have to? And we had a good laugh about it. So it's a great place for me to actually be able to sit and talk about church. And I told them that for reasons outside of my control, it's very likely I won't be a member of the board for much longer. And so, please enjoy this on my behalf. Yeah, that's what I said at church today. I said my goodbyes, and then the bishop. So then the bishop came up to me. He's like, "Oh yeah, did I hear you say you don't think you're gonna be a member of the ward much longer?" I was like, "Well, do you not know about the letter I just got?" He's like, "No." I was like, "Well, I've been called into the office." Before we got Rebecca Barthel has become a member of my YouTube channel, which you can do too. It's a fun way to support me. It's brand new. It's really, really cheap. It's for people who literally want to send me like $2 a month and can't afford to send me anymore, but want to send me something. If you can send that, if enough of you do that, it creates a nice steady base for my income that normally does all this. So feel free to check out channel memberships, and also feel free to donate larger amounts if you'd like on a regular monthly basis or as a one-off at the link in the box, because I can turn this kind of thing into, hey guys, this is still my job. So there we go. Shameless self-plug that this is my full-time job out of the way. Let's find out what the area presidency said. So I spoke to my state president about why was it 10 a.m. on a Monday morning? He said, "Oh, well, it's kind of to do with some work schedules and this and that." I said, "Okay." He said, "And I cancelled with the area presidency, and they thought it would be best if it was during the daytime." And I said, "Well, all right, okay." And there would have been a reason for that. He said, "Well, that was just their advice." I said, "Come on, there would have been a reason they gave you that advice." He's like, "Yeah, well, okay, so." They thought, given that there will be significant media interest in your excommunication, or there's likely to be, they prefer it for optics if it was in the daytime,
which is
because
American
it doesn't look
lighting.
dark and gloomy outside.
No. This is to do with what time it is in the
That
States.
is the official line as to why the area presidency have cancelled that my that should happen during the daytime. Now I've pushed back with the, and I hope revealing this doesn't cause
on
him,
television.
Just so you all know, if now my state president says, "Well, you've ruined it now. You're gonna have to just come at 10 a.m. on a Monday morning," then I've ruined it for myself clearly. But hopefully he will still be considerate that my wife would like to be there and support me, and she has a full-time job, and the other individuals that legitimately should be there would like to be able to be there. So
they don't want you to hit the 6 o'clock news cycle on the BBC.
I don't think I will, to be honest with you.
I don't think you will either, but no, I honestly
this isn't that interesting.
I do.
Oh, you are interesting.
It's no news day, isn't it? But I do honestly think that they are thinking about what time it is over in the States, so that if you broadcast directly afterwards, what were your viewing figures? It's nonsense, but yeah, it should be about
and also
you.
And 10 o'clock on Monday morning, a lot of people are at work, so won't be able to get to the chapel, so there won't be a big crowd and people gathering, and that's another.
I've already told him that I'm not going to be, publishing the date of it. So
do they believe
the lovely
it?
people, they might not believe me, but the lovely people in the chat, 70% of them, according to the algorithm, all live in America. So hardly anyone's going to actually turn up. Unless people start booking flights, but please don't book flights. Don't do that.
I've got a spare room. Come.
Don't do that. No.
You can have the setting.
People that are joining as channel members,
Camping my garden
coming up. That's excellent. I believe there is a Jammy Dodgers emoji that you can send in the chat. I don't really do perks for money, like that's not my thing at all. But YouTube said I could create a custom emoji, and I created a Jammy Dodger that's got a tape here in the middle. If someone could put that in the chat, I want to see what it looks like. So if anyone that's just joined as a channel member, put one of those in, and you'll get to use that in live streams, I believe. But I want to see how it comes up.
Yertle the Turtle has put that in there right now for us.
Adam Jensen has just said, if you want to book a flight, don't, and then donate the cost to Nemo instead. I'm not going to say don't do that, but please use your money wisely. This is my job, but don't bankrupt yourselves.
And I think also this is something that there's real concerns about this cancer, but let's not turn it into a circus.
Yes. Yeah. No. This is not a circus.
Let's not.
But when there's so many clowns, what can you do, Sarah?
Well,
I'm sure there'll be a Thrive event in the near future,
in the vicinity,
where we can all get together and have that sort of moment, and you can welcome me into the ex-Mormon community. I'm speaking like I'm already going to be excommunicated. They might just say, "Oh yeah,
You
no, we
might
won't
not
excommunicate
be.
you." They might not.
You might have faced membership restrictions. They might withdraw at the last moment.
Yeah. Rebecca is saying the church does not tolerate
And,
members who speak the truth.
flying
No one is coming this
monkeys.
far.
Or is it
The
a
church
pig?
actually-
There's a pig flying.
What's this in reference to, Peter? What are you saying?
Oh, that you might just receive membership restrictions or be found
No.
innocent. You know, I'm
I'm a
sure
woman
that
of
they will
Peter.
assess this with an open mind and honesty and
You're
and
spoken
go
almost
into there
like a
without
jaded
any
individual who's been
preconceptions.
through this process himself. Almost.
Membership restrictions
Yeah.
are for people who hit their wives or abuse children. Excommunication
Yes.
is for
Yeah,
people
no.
who
They
tell
don't
the
usually.
truth.
No,
They
if you're apostate,
normally
you'll
face
be
council.
excommunicated.
Yeah, they don't usually face the church council anyway.
No,
So
Oh.
no.
Oh boy. Well, that got deep.
I loved my trial. It was brilliant. My stake president kind of at least pretended to approach it
Hey.
with sincerity, and I think he was. And he allowed all the high councillors to ask any questions they wanted to. Because I was kind of coming out of the blue a little bit, I sent them beforehand links to, explained what I'm about, what my position is, so that they could come prepared with my point of view. Several of them listened to my podcast in advance. Loads of them said very kind things about me, said I clearly have a strong testimony and all of that sort of thing. And there wasn't a negative thing said really. And I think they might have actually had a long deliberation. It was the state presidency who seemed the most grumpy. Everyone else was sort of quite cheerful, and very complimentary. And they did have a long conversation afterwards. I don't know if they were also doing a state meeting, but it went on for a while. And then they excommunicated me, of course.
well, of
But
course.
I think and I hope your state president approaches this, and even if he has not decided to up to this point, chooses to approach this with an open mind and to genuinely consider the merits of the case with integrity. And I challenge him to do that. Have integrity, not a
Well, Sarah?
preconceived
Well,
assumption.
Thanks, Peter.
Yeah. Yeah.
Nemo has always spoken very highly and with respect about his state president, so I would hope that he will take this process seriously. But I just wanted to bring to your attention, Julian Heath, who we love, has put a comment in here about the state president said it was his decision and his alone to hold a disciplinary council, and yet he cancelled with the area presidency on when to hold it.
Well, yes, because
So
it does say in the
Julian's
handbook
just
that
kind
he
of said,
should.
that's a bit.
It does say in the handbook that he would, in matters of apostasy, he should counsel with the area presidency because
Right,
often,
okay.
to quote the handbook, I think it
Because
says
it's
often
apostasy.
apostasy has impacts outside the boundaries of one's own stake. So even though essentially what I'm accused of is entirely within the boundaries of my own stake,
No.
it would seem,
Which
because
was it?
it's internal
send me an email.
communications.
Yeah.
So it's
But
almost-
again,
So it's
reality
either-
check. We
It's
can
either the High
speculate a
Council or
bit.
it's not.
Yeah.
Go on, Peter.
There is no way in God's earth that your state president woke up this week incredibly offended about the testimonies of his stake council members that you had apparently threatened with an email a year ago. Let's just keep pointing out that narrative is clearly bollocks.
You've got me
it's
so
complete
worried now, Peter, that
nonsense.
I sent something to the High Council quite recently and I've just completely forgotten it.
Check
So
the
I
sent
No,
I
even
want to
if
hold.
you did,
I want to
you're
hold space.
No,
for that,
no.
just in
No.
case I'm wrong.
Well, and you can look forward to the evidence that he will
Yes.
bring to that trial, and if
Yeah.
he has any integrity, we'll share with you beforehand, because you're meant to go and defend yourself, rather than he has 15 minutes, then you have to immediately respond. That he will itemize who exactly in his High Council whose testimony got rocked by you emailing. To not sending them loads of evidence of wrongdoing by the leaders, I presume, but simply saying, could you please get your state president, who keeps promising to meet with me and has been avoiding me for months, which he did, to resolve this issue that should be all of your concern, that you have a member of your stake being given restrictions on his membership, denied a temple recommend, not allowed to hold the priesthood without being told any good reason why, and certainly at least on the matter of not being able to exercise your priesthood. because you're there, you're willing to serve, you are happy to bless the sacrament or whatever. And in these days, in our rapidly dwindling wards, we need all hands on deck. If someone's coming through with the priesthood and turning up on a Sunday, they need a job, and the ward needs them to participate and contribute. And you were being asked if you would baptize some people, and they were basically saying you can't, by people who wanted you to baptize them, and also the plot to forcibly baptize me, but that's a whole other issue. Lure me to a river to
We do. There is a secret plot,
but
my final act
he
of
doesn't know
priesthood
about
might be to secretly baptize Peter. Go
on. Yeah, which is starting to sound quite fun, but no. And just all of this is nonsense. And he needs to actually cough up the names of the people who you destroyed with these terrible emails, back then, when all you were doing was asking, can someone please clarify this for me, because you are my state leaders, and the chair of your committee has been ignoring me. But there's you. He has councillors. He has the whole point of the state council is they are meant to have input. They're meant to guide the state president. They're meant to raise a voice on behalf of the members of their congregations. His bishop has a duty to do that, to have that resolved. Why is this happening? Or if it was the bishop imposing that on you, it needs discussing by those people. Either they have their job and their calling and their authority, or they don't. And with that comes being contacted by your concerns. And the nonsense that they would waste hours and hours on in their daily lives in those roles, this is trivial compared to most of what they have to deal with. So you're in no way did anything wrong contacting them. And as you said, if they asked you not to, you would. This is not the crime of
I
the
gave these
century
reasons
for Nemo the Mormon to get X'd on.
Yeah, I gave these reasons in the emails. I said at the beginning of the emails, I believe the High Council should be involved because X, Y, and Z, right? If he disagrees with those reasons, feel free to counsel me. Feel free to point that out, that that's not what I should be doing, etc., etc. Isn't it interesting how I haven't been called up for, if we're digging back through emails I probably shouldn't have sent, I cold emailed the entire First Presidency and Quorum of the 12 to call them all liars.
Maybe you've rocked their testimonies.
But what that led to, was them asking for evidence. Yeah. So we will all have to wait and see. Everyone in the chat, we will all have to wait and see. Wait for my excommunication council, wait for my church disciplinary council, whatever you want to call it. We will have to wait and see exactly what emails are so problematic and what is so troublesome. And I think it's kind of weak of my stake president in terms of reasoning, not in terms of character, but in terms of reasoning, to say that, oh, well, it's your communication, so you should be familiar with them. Because as I've said, I've made a lot of communications. I do like to talk a lot. I do like to write a lot of emails. So it'd be useful to be pointed in the direction of which specific ones that I'm going to be expected to try and defend my actions over. Yeah, a lot of people saying, let's be real, this whole thing has to do with Texas. But yeah, go on, Peter.
Here's two sort of counterpoints to that whole narrative about you threatening faith or whatever. Matt Allen, representing what a lot of people in the comments said, the church itself destroyed my testimony. You, Pete, and Jane actually did the opposite of helping me with faith that good people still exist within the church. And then earlier, Tenny Cap said, I think the thing that would have saved me and kept me in the church was a good line of communication from members to complain about problems. If you don't fix problems, 80% of resolving stress and conflict and concerns in an organization is that people can say what their concern is and be heard and know that they've at least put it out there, that they can say, I think this is wrong, and that they're allowed to say that is very healing. That it's up to other people what they do with that opinion and thought, but to actually have the freedom to do that. And this is what you have been holding the line for at great personal costs that perhaps we as your friends behind the scenes see more than you usually let on publicly. That you are holding the space, as I've tried to hold it, for keeping that bridge open to say this church needs to heal itself from within. And members of the church need to have the courage to step up and say, we can't go on like this. Are you listening to the multitudes who've left, because we're in both worlds. We listen to them and we're saying back to you why it is you've lost your own children and grandchildren, why you have no youth anymore, why your High Council has been eviscerated by people leaving the church, why you are now having to merge your wards and states. We're telling you why, and we're telling you what you could change to be more Christ-like and stop that happening. And people are saying here in the comments, you know, what you're doing is holding that space which would have helped them to stay, or at least
is
have more
helping some
healthy
people stay.
opinions about the church, or
Yes.
flattering. Yes,
Yeah,
I've
there is
been
a
told I've
church
helped
building.
people to stay. Yeah,
There's a
Yeah.
church building in
Yeah.
the UK I go to where I'm not recognised by active believing members now. Like
Yeah.
it's helping people. Ruth, and then I want to get on to addressing some comments
because
in the
someone
chat.
at least is saying it from within, and they
Yeah.
they at least have that hope, that thread, that there are people in the church talking realistically about the real mess it's in and why.
Yeah.
And
I
that
completely
counts for so much. Yeah,
I completely agree with Peter.
go on.
But I think the importance is for those still attending to realise that they don't have the ability to raise questions, to raise concerns, and that should be frightening. In any workplace, whistleblowers are important. In any workplace, that near miss report is important. That first aid record of where a slip had happened so that it can be protected against next time is important. And we have nothing like that in the church culture. And yet we are so top heavy with meetings and committees, but we never actually do the proper work of being adults and being able to create positive needed change, and actually challenge the status quo sometimes and say that is not healthy, that is not sensible. We know, looking back on the 200 years of church history, how many people, truth seekers, people who had testimonies, how many people got thrown under the bus for then the things that they were calling for to be brought in a decade later. There has to be a body count. There has to be somebody who pays the price for speaking truth to power. And I think, unfortunately, it's now your turn to do that. And I think what the active believing members are now in the fortunate position to do, which certainly wasn't the case when I joined the church in the 80s, is that the stigma of listening and being accepting of people on either former Mormons, never Mormons, ex-Mormons, you know, whatever you want to call them, their voices are now legitimate. That we are not so easily scared by the boogeyman of, you know, they are an apostate, which is what they're leveling at you, that charge that they're leveling at you. It's such an emotive, weighted word. And I think what they're terrified of is that actually members in their pews now go, okay, I'm listening to what you're saying, State President. However, I know this kid, I know the family, I know my friends who have gone on this journey, and I know they are good people, intrinsically good people who have concerns and legitimate issues and reasons for why the church did not meet their ethical and moral standards. And there's a reason why they've stepped away and said, not in my name. And I think, so it'll be interesting, that I think they are absolutely shooting themselves in their foot by going down this route. And for me, and I'm being conspiracy theorist, it's all to do with Oakes. It's all to do with, he's feeling the reins of power falling into his hands, and he has a hit list of people he wants the scalps of early doors of his presidency. And he certainly doesn't want you reporting or having a voice, a legitimate voice, in the early stages of his presidency.
Well, thanks for that, Ruth. Can we talk about the second page for a second? So, lots of people in the chat. Oh, please record this. Please record this. Please record this. I can't record this. In the United Kingdom, it would be illegal for me to do so without the consent of all parties involved, and then publish it and give it out to all of you. And the church also makes you sign a confidentiality agreement because, you know, they want this held behind closed doors. So are we ready to read? We're ready, children. Let's all sit down quietly on the carpet. I acknowledge that the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints considers membership councils to be sacred and confidential. and that therefore participants are not permitted to make audio, video, or written recordings of the proceedings. I agree that I will not use any device to make a recording or transmission of the proceedings of the Membership Council, although I will not ask or permit anyone else to do so. I agree that any materials needed by myself or other participants in the Council will be in printed form. No electronic devices will be permitted. That's what got Natasha Helfer unstuck. I acknowledge and agree that my participation in the Membership Council is conditional on signing and complying with this agreement. So you can't go in unless you sign this. And yeah, people are mentioning RFM in the comments. Just before we get into this, RFM was boasting around in the comments, saying cheerio to jolly old. He's rubbing it in, Mr. Unsinkable himself out there. Anyway, so what do we make of the confidentiality requirements? I know Sarah's already had something to say on those. Ruth, have you got any thoughts? And we'll go to Jane.
I think that there's a sleight of hand there in the way that they word it. They think it's sacred, and therefore you need to be silent. Okay, well that your thoughts and your opinions about it does not equate to being you having to deem it in the same way. Your eternities by their own metric is on the line here, but you're not allowed to do anything to sort of prepare for it. You don't know what their case is against you. They're not going to hand over a file of disclosures to you first.
I asked for it. They wouldn't give me the dossier.
Anyone who's been through any sort of legal process would say, how could you possibly prepare? This is a kangaroo court.
Mm-hmm. Jane?
So it's the confidentiality with strings that I have a problem with, because clearly a record somehow or other will be kept. Someone will take notes, and those notes, while they're supposed to be destroyed, supposedly, you should have the right to see them. You should have the right to take your own simple notes. I mean, this is such a significant moment in time. To not be able to make even a mark on a piece of paper, it's nonsensical. The idea that a document like that, a piece of paper, is in any way legally binding is ridiculous. I mean, it's just from a legal standpoint, it's just not. This is, I think, going to be more a question of your integrity and what you decide to do, and whether your choices fit with that. Now, I am totally in agreement with the people in the comments who are saying record. Yeah, we know we're in a world now where we have to record every conversation with a church leader. The reality is, in the UK, it's illegal there are consent laws around that. So that said, that piece of advice is absolutely legitimate. What I guess I would say to church leaders, it's really the shame that I think you should feel asking anyone to sign that. This is a matter of faith for you, and we read in scriptures about sacred parts being uncovered and things that are secret being shouted from the rooftops in the latter days. Confidentiality is one thing, but silencing and meaning that you can't take reasonable efforts to keep yourself safe. A lawyer would say, do not sign that. That is nonsense. They would laugh at it anyway. But I mean, no one would say, sign this piece of paper. But the problem is, in order for you to attend a meeting about you have to. And we all know, if you didn't, that meeting will take part without you being there. So you have to. You're going to have to.
Yeah, and I will happily sign it in the sense of, I'm not going to kick up a big fuss about this. I know this is the game they play. I know this is how it has to be. I'm nothing if not pragmatic. Tape it, you have nothing to lose. I have quite a bit to lose. Yeah. The law is quite strict in the UK, so all these Americans, I wish I was in a single party consent state like all of you, but alas, I'm not, and I will be putting my name to a document that says I won't.
So. You know how in the UK, as a driver in a car, we have the responsibility for not only making sure our seatbelts on, but making sure that our passengers are wearing seatbelts. And I get that. I don't like the way that they are making you responsible for what other people do in that meeting as well. That not only are you signing that to say that you won't take notes, make a recording, but that you're taking responsibility. They're abdicating their responsibility to run the meeting and to police the meeting, and saying you with no idea of what this meeting is going to be about, you are the one that has to sign to take responsibility for what others may or may not choose to do in that meeting. Are you going to frisk them all? What are you going to do? How do you check that they're not wearing wires or have got a phone switched on in their pocket? Do they all have to
sign the
stand there in their
document?
underpants? Who knows?
Well, I will be the first one to point out if any High Councilman gets his phone, out of his pocket and starts. I'll be like, hang on, sir, you put that out of this room.
Phones in a basket, outside the door.
If a member of the State High Council takes their phone out, you don't say a damn word, because you don't have to be the only person that's choosing not to break the law. You guys might be doing you a little favour.
Oh, he might be Maverick. He might be the one you've broken. Oh, I see. Got you.
So just
Well,
for transparency, the rule is that the state clerk, not the exec sec, the state clerk will make general bullet point notes of what was said at the trial. He holds on to that until they've decided on a verdict, and the instructions say that he must later destroy those notes. But he gets to make the notes, and he gets to take them to a next step conversation. He gets to take those out of the meeting, but you don't. You're not allowed to have a conversation with whoever you want to have a conversation with after the trial. But he will, and they will. Yeah.
But it's no different to the fact that they want to have access to everyone's written statements beforehand, so they can have a chance to prepare with them. But I'm expected just to turn up and defend myself off the cuff. Now they're very lucky that I'm good at doing that. But I'd rather not have to. Sarah, please.
Can I just reiterate what I mentioned at the very beginning? Is where is the due diligence and responsibility for the church that are wishing to put you through this procedure in ensuring any well-being and care and support for you, for your mental health and emotional and psychological well-being?
I got better follow-up and support from Lad Bible. Lad Bible genuinely offered to hook me up with a therapist afterwards if there was any problems with.
And isn't that the problem? The church are going ahead with a steamroller of something that is wanting to separate you from your family for eternity, wanting to deprive you of any hope for an eternal future of any sort. And they don't want to look at the impact emotionally that could have and offer any support for that. And everybody's belief is in way different places that are listening and watching and participating in this show tonight. But you are an actively engaged church member.
Yeah. Jane?
So
forgive me for turning camera off. I have many things going on in my house at the moment.
Mute. You would think she had never done this before, honestly. Anyway, I had just wanted to sort of jump in the safeguarding thing too, but from a different perspective. Ruth had mentioned earlier that this is madness. It's the church sort of going down this road. It's opening a can of worms here. What's bizarre to me is Nemo the Mormon has supported the work that 21st Century Saints has done since before we were doing safeguarding in this form. And every step, especially so many really complicated things have come up that we've had to deal with. Nemo the Mormon doesn't podcast absolutely everything. 21st Century Saints don't podcast absolutely everything because that wouldn't be appropriate. That said, when things are very complex, and often there are very complex cases, Nemo has, along with other Avengers, but Nemo has been one of the instrumental people in counselling with us about next steps, and has been invaluable. I don't want to sound crass. I suppose there's no other way to do this. I might as well. I mean, this is a guy who knows where the bodies are buried, people. And you're just like, you know what? He might have just been on the BBC. He's been all over the internet. Let's cut him loose from the church and send him off with all of this information and some little scrap of thing that we're going to call an NDA. Are you mental? And the thing is, Nemo the Mormon does not operate that way. Just to stress, I mean, like, you know, people's stories are very, very safe in his hands. You know, the Brit Avengers group, that's why we're able to sort of counsel together with some of the decisions that we're making. But when it comes to safeguarding, this man has done more than Dallin H. Oakes has to keep the kids of this church safe. We have policies in place because of the support he's given. I think there's something really important here that, you know, Nemo was joking about how, you know, it's not that big a deal. Yes, it really, really is. Nemo is so well loved, so popular, has such an impact, has made such a difference behind the scenes and in front of the cameras too, that yes, people will be paying attention. You go on the BBC and a matter of weeks later, you're excommunicated. I'm sure they have questions around that. I think so much that this is globally relevant. And the other key thing here is the people who are making that decision about what they're going to do, they have the power to make this decision. It's not about your eternities. You'll be good. It's about your membership in this church. So they're going to decide on that. They can choose not to. They can choose not to take any action because you're actually perfect as you are, and you are helping and you are needed. Now, if they choose to do that, look at what's happening in the United Kingdom. Nemo the Mormon was supported by the leadership in his church who could see that what he's doing is helping and it's beneficial. And yes, sometimes it hurts. Sometimes he's talking about hard things, but you can fix that narrative and make this be something that the church embraces. People can stay in that church.
Yeah, we'll see. We'll have to see. I think on that lovely note, should we just wrap this up, folks? I'll get some final thoughts from Sarah, then Peter, then Ruth, and we'll wrap this up because I'm tired and I want to eat more jammy dodgers. But I shall eat while you chat. So go on, off you go, Sarah.
I would just honestly encourage your stake presidency and the members, anyone who is attending this council, to recognise that you and your words and your podcast haven't driven anyone out of this church. People listen to you because they're looking for answers and they're looking for support. And that's why people listen to you. I'm only still in this church because I found this group years ago. We made good friends. We've started off questioning, learning, studying, talking together. I'd have left years ago if it hadn't been for that support. You're the only group of people that don't say to me, why do you bother going to church? Even church leaders say to me, why do you go to church? You guys don't. And don't do this in darkness. Hold this hearing in the open with confidence that you're doing the work of God, or don't hold it at all.
Who try and shine as much light on it as possible, as I'm allowed to, and they know that. That's not. None of this should scare them off from having this meeting and putting it together, and because they know that I'll talk about it, and they were clearly aware that they wanted it to be in the daytime because they knew the cameras would be on it. So we'll see. Contacts. We'll see if any reporters do turn up. Peter, your final thoughts, please.
I'd like to speak directly to your stake president, and not just personally, but in the sense of all stake presidents or all his councillors, all the High Council who will be invited to this trial, and anyone else in that situation. This is a test of your moral integrity. You are being asked by seniors up in your organisation and/or a culture panicking in its persecution complex to make up some complete nonsense to put people on trial and excommunicate them for apostasy because they tell the truth. because they shine a light on the corruption that is self-destructing the church. You can see it. You know, your children are leaving, your congregations are collapsing in membership, your convert baptisms are not being retained in anything like the numbers for the church to survive. This church won't functionally exist in Britain or have any future within the next 5 or 10 years. Just look at the data, you know that's already happening. So what would you like on your conscience? Do you want some of the last things you do before your chapels get sold off and your congregations are over and you're in your retirement one day just reflecting on this church that used to exist and you can only now be connected to online because there aren't enough people to actually make a congregation anymore? Do you want your last acts when you were still in a position of power, of actually having the remnants of a community left, to be that you were one of the people who excommunicated the last clutch of Latter-day Saints with the courage to actually try and have it survive, to try and save it, to have it be honest about its problems and repent, which is meant to be what your religion is all about? I mean, think it through. You are already on a pathway towards you're going to excommunicate Nemo, and you've already decided, of course. And your seniors in this stupid hierarchy are telling you to do that. So at least be honest about that. Or maybe have the courage that you can change the narrative now. You don't have to excommunicate Nemo. You could even cancel this stupid trial because it's up to the stake president whether this happens, no one else. And if you've been leaned on to do it, you're already breaking protocol, just like you've broken protocol in all the other ways we've itemized here. You have no integrity. You know it. You're a lawyer. You're a leader of the church. You know this is all wrong. And you are choosing to be the instigator and the person whose name is going to be on this whole process. You will be the stake president that excommunicated another truth speaker. So I challenge you to have a bit of soul searching over the next few weeks. And if you do proceed with this trial, don't make it a sham trial. Make it real. Provide Nemo with the actual evidence of the actual charges that you are basing your excommunication upon, or your concerns. Don't give him this nonsense about the High Council stupid thing. No one believes that. Get real. Or if that is real, please be very specific about who exactly it was on the High Council that Nemo writing a plea to have his rights respected as a temple recommend holding long-term servant in this church who holds the priesthood, his right to use that priesthood, and being told he can't for no good reason because of integrity that you agree with, basically. And instead, you know, if that's the real reason for this trial, tell him who it was that lost their testimony because of it. Who is that weak in your stake high council? Please get real. So you've got a chance, in a sense, to save your soul. This is a bit, if you really believe that you are going to stand before Christ in judgment, who repeatedly taught these moral dilemmas, do the right thing, let the consequence follow, which is meant to be a fundamental Latter-day Saint principle. You've got a very short period of time to save a bit of your soul, like Voldemort throwing it away on all these stupid acts where you're losing parts of your soul. And I'm saying this to all these church leaders who keep doing these things to the innocent and to the people who actually should be your Christ-like example, not your enemies, who are the Samuel standing on the wall, having the courage to take the arrows and speak truth to a city full of self-righteous, arrogant people, think they're the goodies and they can judge everyone else, which we see over and over again every Sunday as they get up to the Rameumptom and boast about how wonderful they are and how weak all these people who've left are, and the wicked world out there who happen to be hundreds of thousands times as many as them because they haven't shared the gospel with those people. They've just rejected them. Do you really want that to be the system you devote yourself to? This is about you and your God. Where is your integrity? Everyone who participates or facilitates these. I encourage the state high councillors to speak up in that trial for this, for what is really going on here. Have you lied to Nemo about why he's here in this trial? Please be honest and maybe have those conversations with him because you're meant to be his councillors before this trial even happens. Have a difficult conversation in your next state meeting. Whoever you are, female leaders, high councillors, You know, you can stop this machine of stupid happening over and over again, as it always does. But you individuals like Nemo stand up. They make a difference by standing for truth, by doing the thing the church taught them to do. You've got a choice to make, and there's a lot at stake here. Even if you don't actually believe you're going to be held accountable by God for this, it's going to be on your conscience for the rest of your life, and other people will be judging you by what you chose to do and how you chose to do it. You know, you need to realize no man is an island. There is a lot at stake here for you personally, just your well-being. Don't be part of these stupid systems of oppression. You know better.
Thank you, Peter.
Amen.
Could I jump in just before, because I know Ruth is going to say something fantastic, because she always does it. No, you know, we all love. But I think it's just one thing that we haven't talked about tonight. We've talked a lot about impact. When something like this happens in this wonderful community, it hurts everyone. And so I just want to just remind people who are listening to this, whether it's just now or whether you're watching it later, use the chat, reach out to your mates. These Thrive spaces are so important. I know that Thrive, we're planning a Thrive thing around this. Maybe we need to be having them, in support across the world and unite or something like that. But this is it's really important that you all practice self-care, and you know who to call.
Ruth?
Yeah, no, I think that's so important. It's so important. Let's lead by example about how we actually care for each other and show love and compassion to each other, whatever beliefs you have. So I think reflecting on the poison that is that letter and the poison that is the process, and the fact that they want it to be secret, when there was a time when excommunications were put into the newspaper and when those names were read from the pulpit on a Sunday to name and shame people. And here they are now wanting to claim that this is a sacred process and that's why it's secret. No, it's secret because they're ashamed. They're ashamed that that this is what they are choosing to do. And I think they're on trial in this process, not ever you. They're on trial because this is their opportunity to show who they truly are and what truly they stand for or don't stand for. And I feel for the state president, but he is an adult. He is a grown-up. He has the moral compass to make choices for himself. And I think he's acting as Pontius Pilate in this process. I don't think there is a legitimate cause to put your neck on the block in this matter. And I don't think it will matter what you say. And I really don't think you need to feel like you need to answer any case put against you, because there is nothing. There is nothing that you have done or nothing that you could do that would alter the direction of this endeavor, which is to try to quiet your voice. And what the beauty of this whole process is that they will actually only make you stronger. I'm sorry, I'm a Star Wars girl, and they're going to try and cut you down, and it will only make you stronger. Please take a lightsaber into this battle. No, I think and where they totally miss the mark in this whack-a-mole game of trying to silence people is realizing that actually, if they listen to the voices, if they allowed the community to include those that have legitimate concerns and want things to change, and were less afraid of losing power and more afraid of the consequences of not changing and making it a better place, if they actually lent into the love and support that could be part of the community, then we wouldn't be in this position in the first place. They're losing all of the strength and they're keeping all of the brittle, selfish unkindness that is wrapped up in the insecurities of these 15 very, very old men. And I feel sorry for them because there are good people trying to prop up this religion still. And unfortunately, the poison is right there in the heartwood. They're not going to find it easy to cut that away. But it will be what it will be.
It will.
And the variables that you can't control, you know, are what they are. The bits that you can control are the community of support that is around you, both locally and internationally, and the way that you will continue to raise your voice and your concerns. And you will still be welcome to sit on a pew. You'll still be welcome to attend every week. But you know, what will ultimately have changed? You'll be in the position of a person where you will not be able to perhaps raise a question in a meeting. No, but you will still be Nemo the Mormon. They can't take that name away from you. They have
they've abandoned the M word, so whatever.
Yeah, that's yours to pick up and choose to do as you wish. Yeah.
Right. Thank you very much, Ruth. Let me go full screen for a moment. I kind of want to end with a comment that came in from 99 Blackbirds. Check Linkin Park's new song, I Only Wanted to Be Part of Something. And I have actually been listening to that song a lot today. As a Linkin Park fan, I'm excited to see their new music. That's, you know, a connection that some of you may not have realized. And I was just looking at the lyrics, and I'm going to do the very Mormon thing of quoting some lyrics at you. But there's just one line in that song, which I think sums up my situation currently. And it is the line, "Let you cut me open just to watch me bleed." And that's what I'm going to do for you all. I'm going to let the church cut me open. I'm going to go to this trial. I'm going to let it all happen. You can all watch me bleed. They can watch me bleed, and you can see what comes of it, and we can see how it all unfolds. I promise I'll trim my beard before I go, because it's starting to get a little bit straggly. And I will try and get some sleep before I go to my trial. But ultimately, to the extent that I can, I will share with you the results, certainly, here on this channel. If you want to see that, you know what the big red subscribe button does. If you want to support this work, you know what the big like button does, and donations can be made in the description. You could join as a channel member. However you want to support me, share this video. This is newsworthy, so I've been told. Almost 1,000 people have been watching live with us tonight. And that's just on YouTube. So yeah, feel free to join in the conversation around what I've been told is quite a big deal, because it doesn't happen every day. Excommunications are not commonplace anymore. Ever since the church got rid of one's ability to, ever since the church introduced one's ability to simply remove one's own name, they don't have to excommunicate people anymore. And it's got more and more rare. I think Peter was the last person in the UK to be excommunicated for apostasy that I'm aware of before myself. So it doesn't happen every day. So if you want to see it happen, if you want to watch all the events unfold, I will be reporting about it. I'll be playing nicely with my leaders too, to make sure that, you know, my wife can be there sat next to me. And I hope they give me at least that. So take care. Tune in when I'm next here, and maybe I'll show you that video of me messing with the LDS chatbot at some point, you know, when things calm down. Thank you very much, everyone. And I'll see you next time. Hit like on the way out.